This is our 5th video in hospitality operations for top-up students. In this video, we will talk about food production and food and beverage service systems. In this video, we will talk about introduction to food and beverage, food production systems and food and beverage service systems, types of food service and restaurant service. Part 1. Introduction to food and beverage. Food and beverage is a vital part of everyday life. It is a major contributor to the national economy. It's highly fragmented and complex, but creates employment, encourages entrepreneurship, and promotes diversity through many different food concepts and cuisines. The main objectives and expectations of the food and beverage industry are quality food and beverages, a clean, hygienic and safe environment, comfortable and well-designed facilities, professional, attentive and friendly service, and great value for money. Now we're going to talk about the main challenges of the food and beverage industry. Intangibility such as ambience. Simultaneous production and consumption where mass production is difficult. Heterogeneity where service experience may vary due to different producers and consumers with different needs and requirements. Consistency, which is difficult to achieve due to the intangible element in food and beverage. Perishability, where unused hospitality services cannot be stored, returned, claimed or resold. Ownership, where the consumer owns a hospitality product only for a certain period of time. There are no guarantees with little aftercare or service. Imitation is easy, with no patents on service processes and easily copied by competitors. Seasonality, where staffing and expenses are challenging to many restaurant operators. And finally, external variables that impact the running of the business such as political, economic, social, technological, legal and environmental change. Let's move on to part 2, food production systems and food and beverage service systems. So what is the goal of the food and beverage operations? It's to serve the customer the highest quality product possible in a reasonable amount of time. The production systems have to be organised to produce the right quantity of food at the correct standard for the required number of people on time, using the resources of staff, equipment and material effectively and efficiently. The requirements of the production systems have to be clearly matched to the type of food that is to be prepared, cooked and served to the required market at the correct price. Many food production operations are based on the process approach as opposed to party system. Party system approach concentrates on the specific techniques and processes of food production. A whole range of different cuisines are able to fit more neatly into this approach because the key elements focus on the process, the way the food is prepared, processed, stored and served. Using these approaches, food production systems may be identified using the input, process or output model. There are many food production methods. Conventional method, which could be the traditional parties method or conventional production with convenience food. Centralised production methods, cook-chill production, cook-freeze production, and sous vide. Conventional method, With traditional parties method, the majority of food is purchased raw, with very little for convenience foods. Everything has to be prepared from scratch and hence it's labour intensive. This is an expensive way of running a kitchen because of the manpower needed to operate it, its space, equipment and energy requirements. With convenience food, the rules are mostly the same as traditional method production, but for this method, they introduce convenience food with a range from partial to a virtually complete reliance on semi-cooked food. The next method is centralised production methods. It involves the separation of the production and service components. Food that is centrally produced is either then distributed to the point of service in batches or is pre-portioned. It may be transported in a ready-to-serve state. Cook-chill production. Food production storage and regeneration method requires low temperature control to preserve qualities of processed foods. Low temperature conditions above freezing point 0 to 3 degrees, reheating immediately before consumption, and also requires low capital investment and minimum staff. Cook-chill production is the process of food production, packaging, rapid chilling and storage under controlled refrigeration. It is most commonly used in high-volume institutional settings. Its advantages can benefit all types of operations, though especially banquet kitchens, recreational facilities, commissaries and hotels.
Hi, Chef Tim Franks from Flavor Seal. Today we're going to make a better kitchen using our line of Cook-Chill products. When you think of Cook-Chill, you probably think of industrial kitchens with large production facilities. But whether you serve one meal or a million meals, Cook-Chill is a great way to make and store a variety of food safely. And when you need them, they're ready to go. First, we're going to pour the product that's heated up to 180 degrees, like super sauce, directly into the Cook-Chill bag. The ring stand securely holds the bag open, leaving your hands free to help with the food. The bag can be filled with a pitcher or a ladle, whatever works best for you. Next, carefully remove the filled bag from the ring stand. The bag should be removed by gently pulling along the outside of the bag until the bag is free of the ring stand. Grab the bag along the sides at the level of the liquid. Fold the top of the bag over into an L. This helps keep the air out of the bag as you're sealing it. Slide the bag into the sealer, leaving about 4 inches of space between the top of the liquid and the seal line. After the bag is sealed, you can see that the extra space in the bag lets the product lay flat. The goal is to make sure that the bag is no more than 2 inches thick in the middle. This ensures safe and even cooling of the product while it's in the ice bath. If the center is thicker than 2 inches, the product will not get cold. The ice bath cools the product to below 40 degrees, which is the recommended temperature for safe handling practices.
Production, storage and regeneration method utilising principle of freezing to control and preserve qualities of processed foods. Required special processes to assist freezing, for example sauces reheat when needed. Require high speed, low temperature, at least 20 degrees within 90 minutes.
Millions of pizzas travel daily from the frozen food section of the supermarket to the family dinner table. Thick or thin crust, meat or vegetarian, their convenience makes them a staple in the freezer. But how do they end up tasting so fresh when they start out so frozen? Making frozen pizzas requires a maze of machines. To make the dough for the crust, they combine flour, salt, sugar and yeast with water and oil in a large mixer. They also add cornmeal for flavour. The mixer turns the ingredients for about 4 minutes, kneading the dough. The dough rises for about half an hour. Then they feed it into a chunking machine, which divides the dough into smaller pieces. The chunks travel to a sheeting machine that rolls them into a flat sheet 2.5 centimeters thick. A light dusting of flour keeps the dough from sticking to the machinery. A series of rollers, called quick reducers, gives the dough an even consistency. A flour brush massages the dough, ensuring a smooth surface. Next, stainless steel spikes pierce through the dough with holes 7 to 10 millimeters deep. These holes will stop air pockets from forming in the dough. A large plastic roller with several round forms cuts the circular shape of the pizza crust. The machine automatically separates the leftover dough. The factory remixes it with fresh dough for the next batch. A conveyor takes the dough circles to their next destination, the oven. They bake for 2 minutes between 200 and 315 degrees Celsius. 6 chambers inside the oven automatically control the temperature pattern to ensure that each one bakes evenly. Next stop, the tomato sauce. A tank pumps a steady supply of sauce into a reservoir, drenching a roller, turning inside. A plastic board then scrapes the sauce onto the crusts passing below. The excess sauce drips down, replenishing the reservoir. Mounds of pre-shredded mozzarella are ready to be added. A cheese applicator machine controls the output, so that the mozzarella forms an even layer. Large hoppers load heaps of pepperoni, sausage, and other meat toppings into a meat applicator. With the tomato sauce and cheese, the meat toppings cascade down onto the pizza crusts. The pizza is now ready for inspection. Workers take samples off the line and weigh the crust, sauce, cheese and meat to ensure the equipment dispense the right amount of each. Next, the pizzas enter a spiral freezer called a blast cell, where they spend about 20 minutes at minus 31.6 degrees Celsius. An overwrapping machine applies a clear layer of plastic around each pizza, automatically cutting the wrap to fit. A vision control system takes a picture of every pizza, verifying the size, diameter, and checking for any imperfections. The machine automatically rejects any less than perfect pizzas by air blasting them into a separate tub. Finally, an arm pushes each pizza into a waiting box. All that's left now is to heat it up and dig in.
The next production method is sous vide. It is a method of production, storage and regeneration utilising principle of sealed vacuum to control and preserve the quality of processed foods. Individual portions of prepared food are placed in a special plastic pouches. Sous vide is a form of cook chill, a combination of vacuum sealing in plastic pouches, cooking by steam and then rapidly cooking and chilling. The objective is to rationalise kitchen procedures without having a detrimental effect on the quality of individual dishes. Vacuum pressures are as important as the cooking temperatures with regard to weight loss and heat absorption. The highest temperature used in sous vide cooking is 100 degrees and 1000 millibars is the minimum amount of vacuum pressure used. As there's no oxidation or discoloration, it is ideal for conserving fruits such as apples and pears, for example pears in red wine and fruits in syrup. When preparing meals and sauces, the meat is pre-blanched and then added to the completed sauce. Sous vide is a combination of vacuum sealing, tightly controlled unpuppy-yacht cooking, and rapid chilling.
Sous vide is a term that people are very afraid of. Well, sous vide actually translates literally to under vacuum. Sous meaning under, vide meaning vacuum. These vegetables right now raw in this bag are in fact sous vide. You can actually do this without a vacuum machine as well. This will do as a sort of cost-effective alternative. Sous vide cooking can be done many different ways. The one that is most commonly used in restaurants today is using a heating immersion circulator. This is about a $1,200 piece of equipment. For vegetables, you really don't need that precise of a temperature. You want to get the vegetables tender, and you don't want to lose so many of the nutrients that you would lose if you were to stick it in a big pot of boiling water. Here, you have all those nutrients and everything still inside. You have all the natural sugars of the carrot still inside here. We're going to place it in the microwave and really just turn the time up all the way. This is actually one of those tools that people kind of frown on because it reminds them of those little plastic and cardboard wrapped dinners that you see in the freezer section at the grocery store. And this isn't necessarily all this is used for. There's so much technology inside this machine. We're gonna watch what happens on the inside of the microwave. And basically we want to cook this until the bag expands. You want to watch it to the point where it looks like it's about to explode. Then you open up the microwave and take it out and it'll actually repressurize itself. So then what you could do at that point is take that bag of vegetables and actually put it in ice water, shock it very quickly, put it in your refrigerator, and heat them up later. Oh, shit. See, that's what you don't want to happen. Uh-oh. This one actually exploded, which means it's done. If you leave it in there so long that it explodes, luckily the oil's contained in the bottom of the bag, but if you leave it in there long enough and it explodes, it definitely means your carrots are cooked. But at this point, that took about 2 minutes. And if you pull the carrot out of the bag and place it on the board, you can see that it's already completely tender and cooked. You can do this with onions, beets, potatoes. You can really do this with anything. Thanks for joining us here on Voltaggio Brothers.
Let's move on to part 3, types of food service. Waiter service involves the transportation and service of food to the customer, whether at a table, counter or bar, rather than customers collecting their own food. In bar service, customers sit on stools or chairs at a counter, the shape of which may be a straight line or is more usual U-shaped. This type of food service is not designed for large groups of people arriving at once, but for a steady stream of people arriving alone, in couples, or even in parties of between 4 and 6. The covers are laid up and cleared in front of the customer by the waiter behind the counter. Orders are taken by the waiter and dispatched to the kitchen. Here, the food is plated, which is then brought to the counter and placed before the customer. Self-service methods may be described as those operations in which the service staff do not come to the table and serve customers their meals. Customers in fact select their own food, cutlery, and carry them to the dining area themselves. Such a method may be completely self-service, such as in a vending operation, or it may be aided self-service. For example, those cafeteria operations where counter staff are available to help the customer in portioning and serving the food onto a plate. A buffet is a method of food service which is a modification of true self-service. It's a food service arrangement in which foods are displayed attractively on one or a series of tables, and presentation is an all-important factor. Customers collect a plate from one end of the table and move along it, helping themselves to the foods of their choice. A buffet may be a combination of hot and or cold foods. Carvery restaurants essentially offer a 3-course meal, exclusive of drink, at a set inclusive price. The first course is served by the waiter and usually offers a selection of 5 or 6 items. The main course is selected from the carvery counter and served by customers themselves, although usually aided by a control-conscious chef. The sweet course, like the first course, is also served by a waiter. Let's have a look at types of restaurant service. Russian service is a manner of dining that involves courses being brought to the table sequentially, With American service, portions of food are placed on plates in the kitchen and served to each guest by a waiter. With French service, each food item is served by the server from platters to individual plates. A la carte service is used in reference to a menu of items priced and ordered separately. For example, the usual operation of restaurants. Table d'hôte is a set menu which normally consists of 3 or more courses, 1, 2, or 3 choices per course. With Geriden service, the food is not cooked, but a final preparation is at tableside. The server puts food on a portable trolley and prepares it in front of the guests. Specialist food service is where customers are served in an area not primarily designed for service. For example, tray, trolley, home delivery, lounge, room service, and drive-through.
French service is a fine dining technique in which platters of food are assembled in the kitchen and then brought to a banquet table to be served a la carte. Servers working in pairs use tongs or 2 serving utensils in one hand to place portions of each type of food from the platter to the guest's plate. To French means to offer and serve a single portion to each individual guest. This is most commonly used for serving bread. If you are instructed to French the bread, that means that you would offer and serve each guest a piece. This type of service begins with one server placing clean plates down in front of each guest. If a hot course is being served, hot plates will be dropped. If the course is cold, cold plates will be dropped. After the plates are down, the second server follows behind with a tray of food in their right hand and the serving utensil in their left hand. One guest at a time, the server will place food items on the guest's plate with the protein at 6 o'clock, the starch at 2, and the vegetable at 10. Every plate will have the exact same presentation. If a guest asks for seconds, politely inform them that you will be happy to come around again once the other guests have been served. To create tongs using a fork and a spoon, take your left hand, palm facing down, drop your pointer finger and your thumb, and drop your ring finger. Take one utensil, either a fork or a spoon, and place it with the handle facing your pinky on top of your ring finger. Now place the other utensil between your index finger and thumb and practice pinching the two together. When Frenching soup, get as close to your guest's bowl as possible. Take 1 ladleful of soup, scrape the ladle on the side of the soup tureen to avoid dripping, place the ladle in the bottom of the guest's bowl, and tilt the ladle away from them to pour the soup into the bowl. Some things to avoid during French service. Do not rest the platter on the table or on your knee. Do not have guests serve themselves. Do not stab the food and shake it onto the guest's plate. Do not slop the food, and do not slide the food off of the platter onto a guest's plate. French service has been accepted as the most skilled style of service with the highest expectations from the client.
This chapter shows how to prepare the restaurant in a formal style. First, check the table to make sure it's not wobbly and that the base is level. Start with a clean, starched and ironed tablecloth, which should be folded lengthways, in other words, long and thin. Carefully unfold the cloth halfway. Take care that the seams on the cloth are on the underside, and then place it over half the table. Smoothly pull the remainder of the cloth to cover the table, and allow the same amount of overhang on each side of the table. Creases in the cloth should all face the same direction on all the tables. Then take the correct number of chairs for the covers and place them equidistant around the table. Make sure the chairs are clean, undamaged, and stable on the floor. Once the cloth is laid, the napkins need to be folded. This will be to the establishment's requirements, although in this case we're demonstrating the cone fold. First, open the napkin out lengthways in front of you. Take the bottom left-hand corner and fold it diagonally onto the right end of the centre line. Fold the bottom square onto the top triangle. Take the 2 points at the top right-hand corner by placing your hand inside the napkin and fold them back towards you as far as possible. Pull the base out so that it's circular. Place the napkin evenly in front of each chair at about 2.5 centimetres from the table edge. Next, line up the cutlery in line with the bottom of the napkin, as this looks neater. When moving cutlery, hold the cutlery in the middle and on the side to ensure that you leave no marks. Alternatively, use a napkin. In this case, we've set a large knife and fork and starter knives and forks, as well as a dessert spoon. Of course, you could also add a fish knife if required, or a soup spoon. Then the side plates are placed to the left with a side knife. This could be either a butter knife or a spore starter knife, in line with the other cutlery towards the right-hand side of the plate. Glassware now. First, place the water glass above the large knife. Here we've placed a wine glass an inch diagonally left to the water glass. Always use a tray when carrying glassware, particularly in front of the customer, and always handle glassware by the stem to avoid finger marks. To finish off, some establishments may not put salt and pepper on the table at all. However, where they are used, ensure that they're clean, full and undamaged, and then place them where appropriate for the table size and the standards of the establishment. Lastly, place the menus on the table, either under a napkin or in the centre of the table, dependent on the establishment's style, and then add the table decoration. Then make sure that everything is in the same place and lined up across all the tables in the room.